So for the traditional publishing model, it's a closed gate. They are the gatekeeper. So for much of the 20th century, traditional publishing was the only route for authors to get their book in the hands of readers. And so it was a very lengthy process where you had to submit your manuscript to agents, and then the agents would sign you, and then they would pitch that book to publishers. And only a fraction of submissions are accepted. And if they are accepted, they often went through very significant changes, kind of changing the vision of the work to meet the market demands. So this gatekeeping system tended to favor a select few individuals, and it often left out the voices that didn't align with whatever the market trends were. Or in some cases, you just don't know the right people in the industry. It has a lot to do with it too. I mean, that is the way that the business works. I mean, networking is key. If you don't know somebody in the business, how are you going to break through that door? Very, very tricky. So many very talented authors are unable to share their stories with their work with these traditional models. So keep in mind that if you are querying for to pick up an agent, or if your agent is trying to sell your book to a traditional publisher and you continue to get denied, it does not mean that your book is garbage. It just means that it's not what they're looking for at this point in time. And just because it's that doesn't mean that it won't be later, or it doesn't mean that people won't love it on a self-publishing platform. It just means you're not in the right place at the right time. So with the technology revolution, kind of broke down the doors, making publishing accessible to pretty much anyone who wants to learn how to do it. You have ebooks and digital distribution, starting with CreateSpace on Amazon, which is now KDP. They brought it indoors, under their umbrella. You can use Smashwords, Draft to Digital. There's a lot of different options out there that you can upload your work, and you get to control your pricing and how your work is shared with your readers. Print on demand functions are wonderful, especially if you're getting started. If you end up going with the terrible vanity publishing option, they may have you buy 500 to 1,000 copies, and they want you to pay that up front. Where are you going to store 500 to 1,000 copies just getting started? Sure, you're going to sell some to families and friends, but then it's going to take you forever to unload the rest of that. But the great thing that print on demand does, number one, it doesn't cost you anything up front to upload your book. And you can order as many copies as you want. So if I want 20 copies, 100 copies, 5 copies, 1 copy, I can order whatever I need for my inventory. And then I don't have to worry about, it meets my budget. Maybe I don't have the budget to buy 50 copies of the book right now. Maybe I can only buy 25 copies, but I have the option to do so, which is really, really nice. And it reduces your financial risk as an author. There are crowdfunding platforms. I can't remember. I don't know if I ever tried to do a book on there. I don't think so. Most of what I try on there on Kickstarter is games. I do try to offer books as like add-ons and things like that, but never the primary thing I'm selling is books. But yeah, I mean, there are authors on there that sell their books, or they basically fund, to produce their inventory for the books, and maybe hire a cover artist or whatever that might be, whatever they're needing funding for. And, you can provide things like specialized content and things that only people from your Kickstarter can have access to. But, crowdfunding platforms is another way to build an audience, basically. And you have your social media and your online marketing. That didn't exist before. Now you have a means to not only publish your books, but now you can market yourself too. And to be completely honest, most literary agents, if you're applying, a lot of them will ask how many people are in your social media, like where are you at? And they're going to go out and take a look at it. And if you're not managing those pages or you're not growing, they'll be less likely to pick you up. It's just crazy that, if you're going traditional publishing, one of the reasons is because you want them to assist in the marketing of your books and do some sort of publicity. But the fact of the matter is they're really not doing much more than what you can do yourself. And they're actually requiring you to do the legwork up front. And then I wonder, I'm not sure how much they're actually doing on the back end. They might schedule maybe some book signings, but I'm going to be completely honest. You have to look at it from a cost benefit perspective. If you're looking at a Stephen King or a James Patterson, J.K. Rowling, Brandon Sanderson, any of these big name authors, they're looking at how many dollars those books are bringing in the door. And that's where they're going to spend their marketing dollars, because that has been a proven successful campaign for them and a money generator for them. So the majority of the traditional publishing income actually comes from those big name authors, and the smaller ones that they pick up actually don't generate a lot of revenue for most traditional publishing houses. So they're not going to shell out huge amount of dollars on your marketing campaign if they already have a cash cow that's bringing in the dough. That's where all their time and effort is going to go. Unfortunately, that's just business. That's capitalism. That's how it works. Can you get to that level? Sure you can, but it's going to take time. Again, there's no magic wand. I wave it and all of a sudden I'm rich and famous. That doesn't exist. You have to work at it, and it's a lot of time and effort. But you can do it yourself with social media marketing that's now available based on technologies that we have. Again, there's a learning curve there. You have to learn how to do it, and you have to learn how to maybe do ads, and you have to learn how to establish your content and branding and all of that. But that's something that can be learned and that you can do yourself. Access to professional services. We also have great opportunities to be able to find editors or cover designers online. You have places like Fiverr, where you can go out and you can hire somebody to edit your book, or you can hire somebody to design the cover of your book. You can hire an artist. With our digital technologies, we're more connected now and able to do those things where we weren't really before, which, only allowed the traditional publishers to continue to keep the gates closed to most authors. Now that that's open and available, and we have all of these channels in which we can do these things ourselves, now you have this thriving self-publishing industry. And so the impact has been, like I said in my last video, is the diversification of voices. I think self-publishing gave diverse voices kind of the spotlight, where maybe people who were looking for a book with a person of color as the main character wasn't as prevalent in the traditional publishing industry, or somebody from the LGBTQ plus community. Those weren't being focused on. They were the niche genres. And now I think the traditional publishing has seen self-publishing success in those areas, and now they've just kind of overcorrected. And now if you look at literary agents, you'll find a ton of literary agents who are looking for the diversification of voices, which is a great thing if it's done correctly. However, I think a lot of times it comes off as pandering. And I've even I read an article today. I guess it wasn't an article, it was a post about a Star Wars fan and the Acolyte show. And she was a woman of color, and she was a Star Wars fan, and she said, I love Star Wars. She was older, she saw the original trilogy in the theaters, and she's always been a fan, but the newer stuff she's having a hard time with, and especially the Acolyte. She's like, I don't want them to create a show just because somebody in the show looks like me. I want them to create a show that is a good show. She said the original Star Wars, she said, I didn't think anything of it seeing it on the screen, that I didn't see, a person that looked like me. She's like, I found pieces of myself in all of those characters. And while it's great to have a diversification of voices, she said, I feel like I've been pandered to. And if it's not properly executed, that's what you end up with. So that's a whole nother conversation to have later. I have some examples of it done well, and I have some examples of it being done very poorly. The indie industry has also created genre innovation. So if you look back years ago at the New York's Best Times list and you looked at the different genres in which they classified books, there wasn't really, there was your standards. But if you go out there and you look on Amazon and you go to search all the genres and subgenres and genres off of that, you can dig down to something very specific. And so I think that the innovation of self-publishing has found these subgenres of subgenres within the bigger overarching genre, and they've created their own. It's kind of reclassified the way that we look at books and even movies too. So you're not bound by the traditional publishing constraints as far as selecting a genre, and you get to market this creativity. I also think that the indie industry has completely redefined success, okay? So before, you had to have your ticket to get through the gate. Somebody had to tell you, yes, your book is good, we're going to publish it. Now you can publish it and you can build your own following and make the money and you make your royalties, and no traditional publishing house is taking a huge cut of that. A lot of traditional authors don't make that much money. A lot of people think, oh my goodness, you're traditionally published, you just be rolling in piles of cash. That's not the case because everybody's taking a cut of it. But the indie industry has completely redefined success in the fact that you can do it yourself and there doesn't have to be a middleman. Take, for example, I'm just going to put it out there because he's turning the industry on end in a lot of different ways. Brandon Sanderson doing his Kickstarters, making millions of dollars on Kickstarters. He doesn't need a traditional publishing house anymore. He's created his own work engine. He has his own game company now, and they just did a Kickstarter, and I couldn't resist backing it. He didn't need my money because I think whenever I backed it, it was like at like $5 million or something ludicrous like that. But he's done 2 of those Kickstarters and brought in massive amounts of money, and he's creating great content, and he has this whole branding. If anybody's had an opportunity to go out and look at what his booth looks like, I saw it at C2E2 in 2024, and it's amazing. It looks like a bookstore. It's complete. It's not huge, but it's gorgeous. So he has this whole branding that comes along with him, and these Kickstarters have fueled that. Because he has this massive following, he doesn't need the traditional publishing houses anymore. And so he can pretty much go and do whatever he wants now. And so he's kind of breaking away from that. And I say he's redefining success as well here as my main example. He recently went head to head with Audible on author royalties. And basically, Audible was rather predatory in the author royalties. And he went back and Amazon actually changed their business model based on his arguments and insight. So he was able to be a representative for that community on Audible and actually, make change happen for the better for the creators out there. So kind of cool stuff that he's, able to kind of redefine the industry. I mean, it is still kind of finding its legs, and it's nice to have somebody like that to be a leader, somebody who's experienced the traditional publishing world and trying to, I guess, look out for the little guy in the small indie world as well. And my last point is that the indie industry puts pressure on the traditional publishers, especially seeing people like Brandon Sanderson go out there and make millions upon millions of dollars for these products, and realizing that we don't have to rely on them as much anymore, that there are options out there for us to do these things ourselves, and we don't need their rubber stamp of approval in order to do it. And so I think that over the next few years, I think that the indie industry will continue to shake up traditional publishing, and it's going to be interesting where it all shakes out, and whether there's even much of a traditional industry anymore, aside from, the big names out there that bring in the money for the traditional publishing houses. I just don't know how much money traditional publishers are going to continue to invest in new authors, unless they see somebody who's an indie author who is raking in a lot of money. They might bring them over traditionally, but I don't know that I would really do that, given that, hey, we'll take a cut of your money. Why do I need you? I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the industry. So just pay attention.